Hi guys, welcome back. Today's video is going to be filmed once again in the car. It's going to be all about personal statements. I personally think that this is the most important part of your application. Yes, your GPA, DAT scores, extracurriculars, all of that are very, very important. But for me, I think that your personal statement is the one thing that really makes you stand out and pushes you above another applicant. So I'm going to start off by sharing some tips that you should really keep in mind when writing your personal statement. And then I'm going to go ahead and share some parts of my personal statement. I personally am not too comfortable sharing my personal statement because it is personal, but I know that writing a personal statement can be really difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and try to share certain parts of my personal statement that I'm comfortable sharing. For those of you who don't know, your personal statement is basically writing a story about yourself. You're writing a story to tell the admissions committee who you are, talk about your experiences, some great traits that you have, some things that you value, and of course the biggest thing, why dentistry. So the first big tip that I have is to start early. I personally didn't start as early as I had wanted. I submitted my application at the end of August, and I think I wrote my personal statement around April. I know a bunch of people take months and months and months and months to write their personal statement just because they write multiple drafts, they send it to their mentors, they have family and friends read it. But I personally am just not that comfortable sharing my personal statement with people or just sharing my writing in general. And so I literally took 1 week, I think. I still started my personal statement super early because I wanted to make sure that I could wait a couple of weeks or wait a month and read it again to catch any mistakes, because I feel like when you're writing for such a long period of time, whether that be hours or days, you tend to skip over certain mistakes, or like your ideas just make so much sense to you while you're writing, but then like you look back and you're like, oh my god, that was horrible. I also really recommend to write multiple drafts. So like I said earlier, your personal statement is basically a story about you. It's all about you. Obviously, don't go crazy and hype yourself up so much where you're like listing accomplishments. You kind of want to have a storyline behind your personal statement to where the reader is like really engaged and follows throughout the story, and throughout the story they can learn about your experiences and your values. It's just kind of like a unique way of talking about yourself. So I had multiple drafts. I think one was like about my community, another one was about the experiences that I had growing up, just like moving schools and things like that. The one that I stuck with was my story about obesity. So my personal statement is centered around how being obese as a child led me to dentistry. What I'm trying to say is that you should have multiple drafts, multiple different storylines, just so that you can kind of get a feel and see which one you can bounce off or relate to the most. Obviously, make sure that they're all true. Don't make up a random story. Along with different stories, you want to make sure that you have multiple drafts of that one story. I did choose obesity amongst my 4 other topics. And then for my obesity topic, I wrote 3 different drafts that centered around that. It's kind of like figuring out which mode of your personal statement flows the best. Another big tip is to not be, I guess you could say, cliche. You just really want to be true to yourself and share your story. You don't want to add certain things to your story because you think, oh, that's what the dental admissions committee is going to want to hear. You want to make sure that your story is something unique. I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of personal statements about, I had braces growing up and that's why I want to be a dentist because it boosted my self-confidence and things like that. I'm just letting you know that there are probably hundreds of thousands of students who are writing with that same storyline. So just try to make sure that your story is unique and is better than anybody else's braces story. Another really common thing is that a lot of people say, oh, I want to be a dentist so that I can help people. There are so many different ways to help people, so you just want to make sure that you show why dentistry is so special to you and explain why your personality and your experiences fit into the profession of dentistry. Another big obvious tip is to have people read your personal statement. As much as a lot of us are uncomfortable with sharing our writing or sharing just work in general, I think it's a really good idea to get a second eyes on it, but at least one person, you know, a sibling, a parent, a friend, just anybody, a mentor. Because after writing for so long or reading your personal statement over and over and over, you kind of jump over mistakes. You might forget to add a comma somewhere, or you might have misspelled a word. You didn't realize that because you've read it so many times. And so having some fresh eyes to really read your personal statement is a really good way to catch some mistakes that you didn't see earlier. Something else that's really crucial to add into your personal statement is to talk about an experience that made you really realize that you wanted to go into dentistry. So say your story is about braces, like you got braces, you want to be a dentist because that was life-changing. That only does so much, but you want to include experience maybe further down, whether that be volunteering at a clinic or a special patient interaction that you had during shadowing, or some volunteer experience that you had for dentistry. Okay, I'm gonna take my glasses off because the glare is not it. So basically, you just want to make sure that your reason for dentistry is clear and it is deep and it is unique. Okay, maybe not too deep, but you just want the readers to be like, dang, I want this kid in my program because dentistry is so important to them that I know that they're gonna make it important to everyone else, or they're gonna provide the best care that they can. You also really want to incorporate your values, your personality traits, your experiences to show that you as a person really align with the profession of dentistry. And the biggest rule in my eyes is don't lie. Don't add certain things to your personal statement to make yourself look better, or don't make up a random experience. If you get invited to an interview, they're more than likely to talk about your personal statement. And if you don't remember what you wrote, or if you can't explain further about the experience or about yourself, then you're screwed. So now I'm going to be sharing certain parts of my personal statement, parts that I think are the hardest to write about. How are you still fat if you play sports? I found myself being asked since the age of 5. As a child, I wasn't overweight, but in fact obese. I had grown out of children's clothes by the time I was 8 and was even asked to participate in an obesity study. Because of my humiliating size, I feared the annual reminder of my unacceptable health at the pediatrician's office. This fear continued to grow, and I eventually despised every doctor. My pediatrician always told me to lose weight. My otolaryngologist always reminded me that I was deaf, but my dentist, he was special. My dentist had the magical powers of making me feel safe and content despite all my insecurities. He and his assistants didn't care that I was fat. They didn't care that I had a hearing aid, and they especially didn't judge my crossbite or cavities. They treated me with constant love and support in and out of the dental office. It was at that moment that I realized the dentist was a place of assurance and optimism, and that it would be my obligation to continue fostering a positive environment for individuals. I probably read that really fast. I slightly introduced my story, where dentistry played a pretty big role in my life by providing an area of positivity and just giving me the confidence that I was lacking in my life. I couldn't understand how a place I loved so much was fearful and unobtainable for others. I began telling him my story of obesity and how the dentist was my safe place. As he laughed in disbelief, I asked if there was anyone he could talk to for help. He called and cried to an old friend, begging for financial assistance. 1 week later, he came in the same ragged clothing with his friend by his side. He received his extractions and smiled his way out of the office. It was then that I realized the most thrilling and rewarding place for me to be was at the dentist, sharing optimism and assurance to those all around me. So here's where I added a special experience in my shadowing, and I tied it back again to my goal of providing optimism and assurance in the dental environment. I took a while trying to figure out how to end my personal statement, and so this is my last couple of sentences for my personal statement. Every hour I spend shadowing in a dental office or handing out toothbrushes is another joyful tear I shed thinking about the possibility of spending my life as a dentist. All my scars and insecurities have made me hungrier than I have ever been before. This once obese girl used to crave for 4 or more meals a day, and now she's starving for 4 or more years learning with you. Although my hearing is compromised, I can definitely hear dentistry calling my name. My passion, leadership skills, past struggles, and my determination to help others is what will allow me to overcome any adversities I will face in dental school. I am beyond capable of working independently and with others, and am eager and prepared to continue building shining smiles for as many people as possible. So there's definitely a lot more that I didn't share for my personal statement, but I think that the introduction, the conclusion, and the experience are probably the hardest parts. It's just really hard to get started on your personal statement. So applaud yourselves for starting or brainstorming if that's where you're at right now. And if you're done, I'd be happy to read it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that my tips helped a little, and I hope that me sharing my personal statement kind of helped you figure out like what it is a personal statement kind of sounds like. Please, please, please don't take any words directly out of my personal statement because that's plagiarism. If you do need another set of eyes for your personal statement, you can go ahead and contact me. If I have the time, I'll try my best to read and comment on your personal statements. You can go ahead and message me on Instagram at Kylie Kargs, and I will try my best to help you out. And like I always say, best of luck, and I hope you are healthy and doing well. Bye!